Chapter 88. Alden stood on the packed train, staring at the name of the approaching station as it scrolled over the door across from him. O Cruzamento. He watched the words. He had researched Manon a little more and engaging with the unexpected. People had been talking about what goodness was a fairly common discussion point, he assumed, given the number of groans it had elicited. And typing her name into a search bar had suddenly seemed like a chore that had to be completed. He had learned that the boaters' leader had an office within working distance of this station. He didn't know what to do with the information now that he had it other than agonize over it. Fortunately, another text from Bo came in to take his mind off things. Pick up snacks for us. Snacks? Unhealthy ones. Line of asterisks. Half an hour later, Alden walked through the door of his apartment and spotted his friend sitting on the sofa. Victor was beside him, and Bo was typing on Alden's laptop. Hey, Alden said, dropping his messenger bag on the kitchen counter and lifting up the net shopping bag full of snacks he'd bought on his way over from the station. He was preserving it just for the practice. Why do we need unhealthy snacks? Because we're watching a movie, Bo announced. He picked up the remote and pointed it at the television. Familiar music filled the room, and an equally familiar image of a sand dune appeared on the screen. The end of the Lonely Earth documentary? Alden toed off his shoes and dumped the chips and candy on the coffee table. I don't mind, but didn't we have it memorized by 7th grade? Us and everyone else, said Bo. But see, I think it's going to be way funnier now that my friend is a wizard. And we can pause it every time that hammy narrator says something about the Artonans or Avowed and discuss it with our fresh perspectives. Mostly your fresh perspective. Since you've actually been hanging with both Artonans and Avowed, and I have not. My job is to argue with the narrator. Got it? I'll argue with him, too, of course. You can't leave me out of a good roasting. Alden sat with his legs crossed on the floor and watched the familiar montage of images from the late 1950s and early 1960s that started the film. Telstar started to play while a woman in high heels and an apron pulled a ground roast out of the oven. A poster for the Four Pests campaign turned into an image from the Vostok 1 launch turned into a scene of military personnel guarding students as they try to integrate a school. Photos of a Japanese city flooded by a typhoon faded into newspaper headlines about the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was a rough time, said Bo. Would we have nuked the planet by now? Definitely. I think so, too. This was our lonely Earth, the narrator said in a deep voice that would have fit right into some of the radio snippets that would play later in the documentary. The late 1950s and early 1960s was a time full of humanity's highest highs and our lowest lows. They didn't have to sync lowest lows with that clip of Elvis dancing. He looks like he is enjoying himself, Alden said. That was uncalled for. If we didn't blow ourselves up, we'd have gotten over a lot of the rest of it without an alien intervention by now, right? I think we could have eradicated malaria on our own, said Bo. Given a few more years. It was great they did it for us, but we could probably have handled that one. A lot of the things they fought about must have seemed serious one day and then insane the next. You've got people all over the world saying some version of, you have a different god than me, so you should die. You like a different kind of political system than me, so die. You look different from me, so you can't sit in my restaurant. Bo reached for a box of chocolate raisins. Alden. It's still like that in a lot of ways. We're literally on an island that was made because normal humans want to limit our access to the rest of the species. Alden blinked. Right. That's an unfortunate counterexample. I somehow never considered any of the other times I watched this. My original thought was that it's not as bad for most people. It feels like there were so many more groups of humans sitting around feeling superior to other humans for no reason at all back then. And they were using it to justify all kinds of terrible shit. And then one day, the narrator said dramatically as the wind howled across the Sahara, and a reenactment began, we learned we were not alone after all. A large group of wizards and Avowed, one from almost every resource world, appeared in a cloud of smoke. Pretty understated of them to land in the desert, said Bo. I'd have materialized on top of the White House or in Red Square. Or both. Maximum impact. I highly doubt there was a cloud of smoke when they showed up. I bet it was either nothing at all or something so much creepier. Alden was remembering how the teleportation room on Alisart's single quotations ship had smelled like blood. Anyway, if your whole personality was built on being right about everything and fundamentally better than anyone different from you, how do you feel when boom, space wizards and a ton of superpowered representatives from their empire invite themselves over to ask if you'd like to join up? Then one of the first things they do is that. They both watched the screen. The footage now looked different from that filmed by human cameras at the time. It had been captured by the Artonans themselves using both magic and their own technology. Tanwick and the others casually wandering away from that meeting with US and Soviet leadership and then showing up in Bali a few hours later would have been a decent power move on its own, Bo noted. But why not record yourself stopping a volcanic eruption while you're there? There were museums all over the world where you could experience various moments from that day, instead of just seeing it on a screen. The magic rooms made you feel like you were standing there, watching the pyroclastic flow that was going to kill you suddenly encounter an impenetrable wall of magic, the ash and rock piling skywards rapidly. Here is my favorite line. Bo turned up the volume. A couple of days later, Tanwick with her familiar crown of purple hair stood blinking into a camera, a human one this time, and said in response to a question about what the next stage of the operation would be, "We will clean up so that it doesn't look so unattractive. And we will fix the fields that were destroyed. They grow rice here. I like rice. Greater than. Bo was laughing so hard Alden couldn't hear the narrator's next few words. The best part is that she is not just saying that. All the other members of the delegation go back to talking to world leaders and doing good deeds all over the rest of the planet, and she just stays right there for the next year, magically fixing things for the local villages and observing the rice-growing process. She likes rice, said Alden. She beat a volcano, so she gets to take a break and enjoy as much earth grain as she wants. The volume was still high, so the narrator's next words filled the room. Every human who witnessed such an amazing feat wanted to know, what is magic? And can we do it, too? Here it comes, said Bo. The first official definition the True Planets gave us of magic. Unfortunately, it was delivered by an Artonan who wasn't as cool as Tanwick. He did take the time to deliver it in every known human language separately. Maybe he was really pumped and creative in the first 3 dozen, and by the time he got to English he was tired. The man on the screen started to speak in a dull voice. Magic is the process by which we wizards prove our existence and assert our dominion over all else that exists. If your planet chooses to form a contract with us, we will present you with magical tools, healing, and conveniences that you will never otherwise be able to obtain. And a few among you will be granted the ability to wield magic yourselves, with the expectation that you will use those powers for the benefit of both your species and ours. Bo paused the video. Such an idiot. The rest of the team was busy presenting themselves as helpful friends who'd come to say hello and tell us about the chaos that was eating the universe, and then he set them back with a definition of magic that fueled everyone's belief that the aliens had come to exert dominion over all of humanity in mustache-twirling villain fashion. Someone shot the Ute we avowed a couple of days after this aired. That upset me so much the first time I heard about it. I know the Ute we just dug the bullet out of her armor and then added it to her memories necklace. But how could anyone shoot one of them? They are one of the most harmless aliens. She thought the bullet might have been a gift that was delivered too quickly. Ute-wees looked sort of like large fennec foxes with furless, prehensile double tails. They wore charm belts and necklaces full of shiny objects that they liked. I saw one in real life, said Bo. When I was around 8. You did. You never told me that. They weren't a low population species, but Alden had still only ever seen them on screens. He must have been an avowed working for an Artonan visitor, but he was alone at the time. He was coming out of a jewelry store, and he was glittering like he'd bought out the whole place. I wanted to say hello to him, but my mom dragged me away before I could. A few seconds passed, then Bo looked at Alden expectantly. So what? You're a wizard. Say wizard things about magic. Comment on the first definition. Oh. Replay what he said. You have the attention span of a flea. Some jerk made me go to school today. I burned myself out debating superterrorism and talking to Luke Volra. Bo replayed the section of the video. Alden listened to it closely. It's only one sentence, it sounds like it's not an answer to the question at all, and he has a massive wizard superiority complex, said Bo. The definitions the other ambassadors gave when they were cleaning up his mess were much more satisfying to most people. The other answers mostly imply that magic is a kind of special energy Artonan wizards have inside of them and they use it to manipulate the universe, said Alden. That's right. And that's the explanation that's most popular. Remember that kid in 7th grade who called it alien spirit gas? Said Bo. Alden did. The unfortunate boy had been subjected to fart sounds whenever he walked into classrooms after that. Some people think it's mystery energy, Bo continued. Some people think it's more like prayer with replicable results. Others, and quite a few about, think doing spells is like outputting code that the world responds to. And the Artonans muddy the waters by not outright disagreeing with any of it. I've got you here now, so. Reveal the truth. Well, magic does a lot of different stuff. So it's not like you can point at any one of those ideas and say, this is completely wrong. Even the prayer one. People who think that are probably thinking of word chains, right? And outputting code makes a lot more sense as a concept if you're an avowed with a spell impression. Does it? Alden nodded. They make you feel like a robot. Weird. Should I get one if I ever have the chance? It's convenient, said Alden. Really thorough. Very efficient. Nearly infallible. You sound so surly about it. Feeling my body and my brain do complex things on autopilot grosses me out. He looked back at the screen. It was nice that Joe's first, more generalized lessons on authority hadn't been conducted under the same extreme strictures as their long final discussion about the bearer of all burdens and the original skills. Alden had since figured out some things on his own and had his knowledge shored up by Kibby and instructor Gwynlore, so he could talk about this a bit more freely. The first definition was better, he said. I mean, it was worse in one way because humans don't have the base concepts of reality or the senses to understand what he meant by it. So it comes across as him bragging instead of giving information. But it was actually better as far as openness and honesty goes. That's like a stripped-down and language-limited version of the definition of magic they give wizard toddlers. Really? Really? Bo grinned. I wondered. For the first time in my life today, I delved into the depressing and embarrassing world of adult humans who believe, despite literally decades of evidence to the contrary, that they can become wizards by mimicking footage of wizards in action. Alden winced. Oh no. Yes. Mine eyes have feasted on many strange sights. There is a man in Washington state making wands out of sticks he marinates in his own bodily fluids. There is a woman who has spent the past 20 years meticulously memorizing every single facial expression ever made by a visiting wizard. However, despite the fact that many of these people pursue foolish and smelly habits, they do have some valuable qualities. They all speak Artonan well, and their unhealthy obsession makes them strive for authenticity. He spun the laptop around to show Alden a Japanese website. The system translated the title as Dominant Humans Society. Greater than. Please ignore the many layers of confusion the name they've chosen can produce. They are just big fans of the first definition of magic. Because, as they point out, contemporary Artonan guests on Earth use many different words that the system translates as magic that are better translated as power, dominance, sway, or, more bizarrely, my spot. Avowed who go to the triplanets often enough have to notice those things, too, said Alden. Once you speak the language, it's impossible not to realize that the way they talk about magic is different than most humans think of it. But it probably comes across as wizard cultural posturing to people who don't like Artonans or who don't care to delve into it. Because if a wizard doesn't sit down and explain it to you really slowly and clearly, it's easy to convince yourself that they are just being poetic, arrogant, and alien, instead of surprisingly literal. Bo shut the laptop and set it aside. So give me your definition. He was leaning over his knees toward Alden. He sounded eager. Of course he did. Alden wanted to tell him, and at the same time, he very much didn't. Talking about it in general is fine, he said hesitantly. But if you want me to try to teach you how to do it, too, I'm going to need to think about that. For a long time probably. Okay? Bo stared. You think you can teach other people how to do it? I don't know. I don't think it would be impossible if I chose the right person. Probably another avowed. It would be really hard. And time-consuming. Maybe even years' worth of time-consuming for both of us. If I even wanted to at all. I wasn't asking you to teach me, said Bo, watching him closely through his brand-new glasses. I assumed you couldn't. Either because of that tattoo on your chest or because you were a one-of-a-kind case. For the obvious reason. Oh. I am, but I think there should be others who are capable of it. Only it would be harder for them than it was for me. And possibly less worthwhile. According to her, Gordon's refinement of Alden's authority made him qualify as gifted. He hadn't thought much about that statement over the past few weeks, but it had crossed his mind a few times. Mostly when he was wondering how gifted you had to be for an entity like that to acknowledge it. Thanks, Gordon. Hope you liked Natalie's cinnamon bun. I think you have to be underestimating the difficulty of it even with all those caveats, said Bo. Everyone is curious about magic. Plenty of smart avoweds spend lots of time with the Artonans. By all accounts, they are secretive as hell, but there's no way every last wizard, including a couple who've gone and married humans, would refuse to teach it. Someone would have broken the rules by now. So if it's not damn near close to impossible, then the triplanetary government must assassinate everyone who does it, because otherwise there would be a small population of human wizards running around already. From what I've been told, I'm basically the only one right now, said Alden. It made more sense when you knew the whole truth. Joe was probably the king of rule breakers, and even he had been very firmly against teaching an avowed magic. It meant flouting your culture, your colleagues, and your conscience. And after months or years of training, you'd be gifting your student not only power but a variety of pain they couldn't properly understand and consent to until they were too deeply involved to back out. You'd have to be at least a little bit of a monster. Or a very patient and determined child who didn't know any better. He cleared his throat and pointed at the TV. My definition is totally better than that guy's. Here it is. While I was on Munthagun being sandblasted by chaos, I became aware of myself greater than as a unique existence within reality. Becoming aware of yourself in that way is probably what the human dominators, or whatever they're called, are translating as my SPO. It works. You gain awareness of yourself as an entity beyond the physical, and in doing so you come to understand that you both have an authority. You learn to direct your authority to affect changes in reality, aka doing magic. In the process of doing so, you can grow the strength of your authority and expand it beyond your initial spot, gaining presence greater than and the power to do more magic. Alden took a breath. Awesome. He'd gotten it all out. Mostly in English. And it sounded closer to right than he'd thought it would. I don't know why you're grinning. That was some of the most abstract, batshit sounding. It was really very clear. Bo shoved up his glasses. You sound like a snooty Artonan wizard wearing an Alden suit. Alden considered that. Thank you. Fine. I did understand it better than the single-sentence definition at least. Do you want to see me do it? We can always finish the movie later. Alden undid the buckle on his leather cuff bracelet and unwrapped his Oriot. Cool. Is that a magic string? Bo reached out curiously. Alden had been in the process of standing, and at the sight of a hand reaching for the Oriot, he reflexively leaped backward. Only to fall over the coffee table full of snacks. Oh. He said, staring up at the ceiling. Bo stood with an amused look on his face. Are you all right? Your agility stats failed you hard just now. Alden let his left foot sweep a chip bag to the floor as he yanked his leg off the table and sat back up. Yeah. Sorry. That was, Bo held up his hands. "I will not touch your magic string," he said, the solemn voice at odds with his growing smile. Alden climbed to his feet. I know. That looked crazy. Maybe you can touch it. I just haven't really thought about it, and I panicked. Is it delicate, or is it dangerous? It's part of me, said Alden. I've bonded with it, and we are growing more intertwined as I practice. We? Does it have a personality? Bo asked, lowering his hands. No. That's me projecting. He looked down at his fingers. He was already absently weaving the ori out into the starting position for the elementary school graduation spell. It's an ori out. It's a tool that feels sort of like an extra limb. But it's also a deep expression of myself. Honestly, I've got a little bit of a security blanket thing going on with it, too. He took a step closer and held the interlaced string out toward his friend. Bo regarded it cautiously. It's neat. It's almost like liquid instead of string to the touch, Alden said, holding it in front of Bo's nose. I promise not to fall over the coffee table again. I'm good. I'm not sure if we're talking about me shaking hands with your soul or you offering to let me touch your favorite kidney, but either one sounds unnecessary just to satisfy my curiosity. Alden shrugged and lowered the ori out. Well, move Victor off the sofa then, and watch me and my favorite kidney do something cool. He headed into the kitchen, his hands moving by rote. His mind was focused on manipulating his authority into the shapes that filled in the gaps in the ori out's pattern. It felt good. Exciting. Like he was approaching the edge of a high dive, and he was already anticipating the way the water would part for him. Yield to him. In exactly the way that he demanded. His free authority moved. Not as fast as his fingers could. His hand speed had surpassed his authority control by too much, but that was all right. It gave him a new goal to work toward. He spun to face the sofa as the final design of the spell took shape. Bo was standing off to the side by the pinball machine with the cat in his arms. Alden lifted the ori out, aimed over the counter, and made sure to throw himself into the final push. He didn't have enough free authority to hold himself back in the way he'd been able to on those final days at the lab, but the water still parted. Alden couldn't see the square of force shoot across the room, but he was aware of it on another level. It was as if there was an echo of the command he'd given in the world around him that he could just barely detect. One day, maybe he'd be able to feel it more clearly. He was staring at the exact spot he'd aimed for, so he saw the instant the back cushion of the sofa depressed, in a perfect square shape, with a thwack sound. The whole piece of furniture rocked and fell over onto its back. "Did you see?" he demanded, hurrying into the living room and letting the ori out helpfully wrap itself back around his left wrist. He pointed at the fallen sofa. "That was my spell." Bo set the cat down. "That was sick." His voice was almost as excited as Alden's. "That was 100% a spell that the system would never offer a rabbit. And you've got it anyway." "I know." You kicked the couch from across the room. "I can do it from even farther, but the aim needs a little work. It's just the graduation spell they give wizard kids when they leave this fancy pants elementary school on Artoni, but if you can do that you can do so much more." "I know. There are like a billion spells I won't be able to do because I'm not Artonan, but they've been wizarding around since the dawn of time, and they've got more magical knowledge than anyone could ever learn anyway. So even if I'm stuck with pure hand casting and I can't do double-brain dolphin chanting or jet off to other worlds to get potions ingredients, I'm not ever going to run out of stuff to try." "Can you do it again?" "Yes. A few more times at least. Can't I show you some others, too?" Line of asterisks. An hour later, they sat on the floor in the wreckage of the living room. All the furniture was tipped over. Several chip bags had been used as targets, and crumbs littered the floor. There was a faint smell of smoke in the air from the little bits of paper that had been burned in lieu of candles. They both had very sanitized hands, and the last chiming notes of the song spell were fading from the air. Victor had abandoned them to their madness long ago. Alden laid on his stomach on a battered sofa cushion and watched Bo. His friend's back was propped against the bottom of the overturned sofa, and he was trying to get the wax paper wrapper off a smashed caramel. He was relaxed and happy. They both were, because Alden had asked if he wanted to share the emotion. Bo had seemed surprised. Alden just thought it was the obvious thing to do. And there was another reason. Now's a good time. Big anxiety spike, Bo said without looking over at him. He'd been verbally identifying Alden's emotions for a while now, maybe as an attempt to fully disclose what he was reading. I know. Could you shield up again? Done. I wanted you to know it's fun for me. Doing magic. That's an understatement. You've got this very specific emotion when you do it. Like self-affirmation and a success high all rolled up together. I haven't felt anything quite like it before. Alden took a deep breath. My affixations hurt now. Bo's fingers stopped prying at the caramel wrapper. His eyes met Alden's. I don't know why I'm texting it. I guess it's easier. When the system does my affixations now, I can feel it. Changing me. Oh, Bo said quietly. The work the Artona I contracted on me after I got back from all that time away was. I couldn't even use my skill after it happened. Not until a couple of weeks ago. And it's still this thing that. Sometimes I can't sleep. I don't want to talk about it. But I did want you to understand why I freaked out yesterday when you were trying to tell me about U-type affixations. And why I'm not sure about teaching anyone else. Bo hadn't looked away. Alden did himself, letting his eyes fall on the dirty floor. Anyway, he said after clearing his throat, now that I'm back in action again, I've been memorizing new spells. I think I'll be able to cast a couple of them really soon. There's this one that crushes the hell out of stuff. Close range. Baseball-sized crush zone. Sphere or pancake depending on how I adjust it. I think it's going to be like having permanent access to a hydraulic press. I'm going to flatten all the things. I don't know how practical it will really be in everyday life. Extreme crushing doesn't have to be practical, Bo said in a casual voice. You should just enjoy it. Alden smiled. Right. Also, close-range flash freezing. I've got both of those down, and I'm basically just waiting until my authority develops enough so that I can do them. I think I'm almost there. The freezing spell goes well with your new passion for keeping inappropriate things in your pockets. Exactly. I can make frozen food and keep it frozen. All I need is a spell to heat it back up, and I'm a one-man kitchen. You can make tiny flames, Bo pointed out. Just learn to cook over an open fire, and you're set. Alden gasped. I'm amazing. You're shaping up to be the ideal camping buddy if nothing else. You even entertain people with finger songs. The spell I plan to memorize after those is very similar to the graduation spell. It makes a sharper force shape, a triangle that flies through the air like a thrown dagger. Spells that cut and smash in different ways seem to be particularly common uses for Oreads, but they aren't the only kinds. There's an honest-to-goodness object summoning spell at the end of the book. I'm drooling over it. Anything in your line of sight below a certain size could be summoned. They talked about some of the other spells Alden was looking forward to, and then, out of the blue, Bo asked, Does having the tattoo bother you? Alden looked at him in surprise. In what way? In any way. The level of restrictiveness I agree to is inconvenient, Alden said after thinking about it briefly. There are a lot of things I can't say that I would like to tell a few people. Like you. But I did agree to it. And I got a lot in exchange. I honestly think the wizard who made the contract with me was more than I was ready to deal with. But he was pretty fair to me other than that. So no lingering negative associations with tattoos in general, said Bo. Do people give you a lot of shit for having it? I haven't shown it to many humans other than you and Jeremy. The doctor who did my physical exam for CNH was appropriate about ignoring it. And I know the worst you two are going to think is that I was a dumbass who got in over my head. Not that I agreed to a private contract because I was committing murders off the record, or that I took money in exchange for letting some creep do experiments on me. Yeah, I assume the most common use of them is to protect sensitive info instead of covering dark deeds. Or that they are faking the Artonan obsessives who have them just wish wizards wanted to tat match with them. Alden brightened. I'm getting one on my face. Excuse me, what? With Kibby. When she gets her summoning rights for the first time, I'm going to be her first avowed summons. And the entire purpose of the mission will be matching facial tattoos. What will the contract be? Bo asked slowly. Eternal friendship and respect, Alden said. It's all decided. When is this happening? More than a decade from now most likely. But it's happening. Okay. You look really excited about having blue ink on your face forever, so. Way to go. Also that makes me feel much less worried about what I was about to ask you. Can you make a magical contract with someone? Like can you do the wizard part of it? I don't really know how to. Kibby kept asking me for one because she thought it would be like an authority handshake with magic ink added. And I do think it's probably something pretty simple at the core. But I don't know how. I understand how tattoo design works, but I think to make it all come together I'd need instructions. Do you have any way to get those kinds of instructions without risking revealing your wizardness? Alden considered it. I'm not sure. I could ask some people I know really general questions just out of curiosity and hope the answers were enough to go on. I could try to buy a magic book with the info in it. Oh yes. Trying to shop some kind of avowed magical black market is a very smart thing to do for someone in your position, Bo said sarcastically. Or I could trial and error it. We might end up looking like the walls in a public bathroom before I got done. I'm assuming you're asking because you want one with me? Bo nodded. I spent all day trying to negotiate with the system. Shithead didn't give me so much as an exclamation point in answer. Finally, I asked if I could tell you everything without losing its help if I formed a wizard's contract with you, and it woke up. It actually agreed. Alden asked, surprised. And impressed. He hadn't realized you could successfully negotiate with Earth. Maybe he needed to try harder in the future. It sent me a picture of those concentric triangles on your chest. And the words, yes. If you both make not revealing the information to anyone else in the future part of the bargain. Oh. So it only agreed because in that scenario you telling me would actually give us both less freedom to do what we want than we have now. That checks out. A surefire, shut Bo up, solution seems to be really tempting for it. I guess making myself less of a future variable must take a load off its plate. Alden pushed himself up from his cushion. Is this big secret something you actually want to tell me? Or is it something you feel like you have to do for my sake? Because if it's the second, then I don't need it. I regretted a lot of things when you disappeared. This was one. I want to. Then I'll figure it out. I don't think I'll manage it before you leave, though. I can't possibly get the info I need in the next few days, unless the system's willing to give me the instructions itself. System, could you do that? No. Bo looked startled. It answered on my interface, too. Group chat with the system. What an afternoon. Can't we not just do a magical contract through you somehow? Alden asked. System moderated. You're the contract for an entire planet. This should be right up your alley. You completing such an agreement yourselves will produce a more ideal result. Why? Alden and Bo asked at the same time. The system didn't answer. Of course not. It's a good idea for you to learn anyway, Bo said. If you're going to wizard, you should wizard all the way. And I would sleep much better if you would contract lock a lot of the news you've already given me in my head. You sound like Kibby. Contract with me, Alden. I will not reveal your secrets even under torture. She does sound cool. By the way, where are all these alien kid videos that you've been promising me? Chapter 89. Alden's remaining days with Bo were much too brief, and they threw into stark relief one inconvenient fact about his new life. I can't get approval to go back home for Christmas or New Year, he told his friend on Wednesday night, slamming the door to his bedroom and stalking into the kitchen. All the requests I put in this morning were denied. I got the notices while I was in the shower. Well. Bo glanced up from his perusal of the enormous stack of coupons Alden had received when he first entered intake. We thought it would be that way. I can't go back next Christmas either. Alden yanked open the fridge and glared at an innocent bottle of green tea. The US approves of voucher visits up to 18 months in advance, and the slots for major holidays for anyone C rank and above fill the day they're opened. I have 11 days off between school quarters then. You know what else I can't do with that time? Get approval to have guests here on Anzidora? Bo suggested. That's right. Because Anzidora allows us to schedule visitors 2 years in advance. And the special occasion slots here fill up the second they're opened, too. So maybe, if I'm lucky enough to not be on the summons on sign-up day this year, I can have a holiday with my family or friends, when I'm in college. February is probably good, right? Or March. Alden grabbed a container of acorn squash soup. Yes. It's manageable. Weekends get booked up fast. I guess I just have to skip school if I actually want to use the 14 days of family time the US allows me each year. But the local hero team in Chicago will also ask my school how I'm doing before they grant my approval, to make sure I'm a good boy who won't hurt regular humans while I'm under their jurisdiction. So I can't just skip class. I have to get permission from the school, then get permission from the country I was born in, then get permission from the hero team in charge of monitoring me and sign a paper saying I understand they will arrest me if I so much as magically sneeze or step outside the city limits. If it makes you feel better, I'm sure the process is really streamlined. It sounds like a lot, but it's probably computers putting check marks beside your name all along the way. They are treating me like I've done something bad. But I haven't. And that fact makes me want to do something bad. Alden shoved a spoon into the soup without bothering to heat it. Bo raised his eyebrows. What kind of a villain phase will it be then? Something heinous, Alden muttered, shoveling soup into his mouth. How heinous? I'll. The silence stretched between them. Bo started to snicker. Shut up. I'm thinking of things. You literally can't think of anything bad to do. I can. I'm trying to think of something bad that involves my powers, though. My skill requires people to entrust me with things. So my evil has to have an accomplice. Bo rested his elbows on the counter and steepled his fingers. I will be your minion. You're welcome. Alden pointed the spoon at him. I can't have a minion who outranks me. Everyone will think you're the one in charge. Since you can't even think of crimes to do on your own. I'll throw haunting spheres into movie theaters and make them yell. Petrifying. Alden sighed. I actually can think of a few terrible things, but they're a little too terrible for me to joke about them. I wanted to be funny with some middle ground crime. Something between pranking moviegoers and decapitating cyclists with fishing line. The evil oozes from you. Bo pushed aside the stack of coupons. Seriously though. I'm sorry. It sucks they make you jump through so many hoops to visit. Do you know there's pushback here on Anzidora about allowing more guests, too? It's purely an insular locals thing. They don't like tourists, even though practically the only tourists here are the family members of first generation avowed. It's not even close to a majority opinion, but still. Wish you were unregistered, too? Bo asked. Alden winced. Sometimes, he admitted. But I'd have other stresses then. I mostly wish you weren't going back home. It was different with Bo. Alden didn't want to dump his baggage on Connie or Jeremy. He didn't want to with Bo either, but he could. Or he had been able to. They were putting a moratorium on sharing earth-shattering secrets at Bo's insistence, until Alden could figure out how to magically bind them with his own version of the triangle of absolute secrecy. On Alden's end of things, there wasn't much left to tell anyway. He couldn't talk about Bearer, and the cat was already out of the bag on his budding wizardry. He wasn't going to give anyone details about the Knights. He didn't know what combination of politics, personal reasons, and culture made them want to keep exactly what they were private. But they did. And he understood it himself on a gut level. Bo knew Stuart was the son of that really important primary guy Alden had met at the party. Which was all Alden had known himself a few months ago. It was fine. The only thing he really had left that he wanted to share was the existence of his fake profile and his actual level. But the contract lying about your powers to the Artonans was just about the most earth-shattering news he could think of. Even bigger than him being able to cast spells now. It could wait until he figured out contract magic. Someone pressed the buzzer on the apartment and shouted, "Trick or treat." Through the panel. Bo looked at door. "Are you supposed to be passing out candy tonight?" "A lot of people are. I didn't even decorate my door, so that person's hoping for a bit much." "Don't worry. It's locked, and they're used to me skipping out on social events." Bo's fingers went back to their steepled position. "In that case, let's talk about that disturbing text you sent me in the middle of the day." "What disturbing text?" "A quote, 'I think I really ought to do something more serious about Manon and the boater.' What do you think about me confronting her directly?" "Oh, that's no big deal." Alden just hadn't been able to put it out of his mind since he saw Carl. "I was in engaging with the unexpected. We were talking about what goodness is again." "And your answer today is vigilantism?" Bo asked in a flat voice. "Because I seem to remember you saying that an actual sway superhero told you there was no legal way to handle the problem." "Of course not. She's a cult leader who lightly mind controls her friends and uses them like breakable dolls. And I know about it. So I have to do something for them. My original idea of sending them messages wasn't really enough either, was it? And it probably wouldn't even work. I don't want to cause a huge mess, but I should do more than that. I could tell Manon herself I know what she's doing. I could. Do you actually want to save the butter? Or are you feeling an urge to fuck with Manon because she indirectly fucked with you and got people killed? Or is it something far dumber than either of those things? I told you I'm over my dark desire to see Manon punished. I want to help the boater people, Alden," he said tiredly. Alden shrugged and took another bite of his soup. "Their dynamic with Manon is strange. I don't know which of them really needs an out and which of them might be a willing participant in whatever it is she's doing. But she magically nudged a woman into busting up her leg and then kept her from getting help for it until it was so swollen she couldn't walk on it properly. So at least one member of the collective couldn't possibly be on board." "And?" said Bo. "And? It's awful that I've been here for 2 months without even trying to help. It's shitty." Bo pressed his face to the counter and clutched his hands together behind his head. "What's with the drama?" Alden thought with annoyance. "I am not a therapist," Bo said in a muffled voice. "But at the risk of seriously pissing you off, I am going to tell you something about yourself that I'm sure you don't want to hear. If you're going to say I'm lying about the revenge, I'm not," said Alden. It's not that. And I'm not reeling you right now. But I have in the past, and I have very recently. So I know what I'm about to say is true. And I think even though hearing it said aloud is going to make you unhappy, in the long run, it might keep you from getting stuck on moons. Well, I'm all for that not happening." Alden felt nervous suddenly. Bo could say devastating things when he was angry. He didn't seem very angry right now, but Alden doubted that gaining the ability to read emotions had softened his edges. Bo looked up at him. "Some people are deeply compassionate toward their fellow men," he said. "I don't know if it's nature, nurture, or habit. But they actually want to help total strangers. They care about every single person who crosses their path. They are as close to being pure givers as humans can be. They are special. The world would be utopian if everyone was like that." Alden nodded slowly. "There's another type of person," Bo continued, not taking his eyes off Alden's face, "who runs around doing good, not out of world-hugging compassion, but because being a do-gooder gives them energy. If I'm being ungracious, I'd say it's selfishness and ego-stroking, but that's selling them short. It's more like helping out as their identity. For whatever reason, it's part of how they see themselves and their place in relation to others. Running to save someone else psychs them up and makes them fulfilled and confident. They feel amazing when they do the right thing. I suppose that's pretty special in its own way." Alden set aside what was left of his soup. "I know what you're going to say. Let's call those people Hero Type 1 and Hero Type 2. Bo held up 2 fingers, then he added bluntly, "You're not either type. You really wish you were. You try so fucking hard to fit both of the molds." But you never have been a natural humanitarian or someone who gets high on his own righteousness, and you're not even close to getting there. Thanks, Alden said sourly. I think I've made it clear in multiple ways recently that this is something I've noticed about myself. Yes, but for some reason, it bothers you. You think it's a personal failing. Isn't it one? Bo stood up and slapped the counter. No. You have got to stop being ashamed of not being the merry, self-sacrificing savior figure you have in your head. The things you said about yourself in some of your voicemails. Stop feeling disappointed in yourself for not enjoying running on broken bones in some kind of one-man alien death marathon. Nobody normal fucking would. I know that. Then why are you so upset about not wanting to do something like that again? Alden, it's not healthy. Why do you feel guilty? Why do you feel guilty? Of all people. You saved someone's life. More than one person, I'm guessing, if I read between the lines of that dorky berry-picking story. If you lounge around in bed for the next 100 years, you've already done it. You can quit now, and nobody who has more than a single brain cell will ever think you haven't earned it. I almost left her. Who? Kibby. Alden shouted. Before I knew her. On the first day, when it was all going wrong and everyone was dying. I heard her whistling for help. In the grass. And I knew it was probably one of the little girls trying to get my attention, and I knew something horrible must have happened to her, and I just stood there for a while. Because I didn't want to deal with a problem that hard. But you did deal with it. You dealt with it for months. I left her sitting in the car with the corpses of her family while I felt sorry for myself, Alden spat. Bo took a deep breath. His next words were soft. The standard you hold yourself to scares me. I am so afraid that as soon as you're not completely drained by everything you've been through, the unnecessary shame you feel is going to get you killed for real this time. Alden's urge to argue left him at that. I'm not going to do anything stupid. You just suggested directly confronting someone you know as a mind controller, so forgive me if I don't believe you. Alden held his hands out and gave his friend his best. I can't help what you believe, look. Bo pointed at him. You've lost my trust. All it took was some self-righteous moron saying the word goodness in a high school class for you to have a guilt fest about not flinging yourself into danger to save the fucking border people. They're a bunch of adults who've gotten into a messy situation on their own, and they were assholes to you on top of it. You don't really care about them. But I should, Alden argued. And if I can't, I should at least act like I do. What logic is there in forcing yourself to feel obligated to every single person you run across? I can't believe you're so, Bo threw a fistful of coupons at him. Alden stepped back in surprise as paper fluttered around him like leaves. I'm going to get this crammed through your thick skull, or I'm not leaving the island on Saturday. I will literally turn myself in and stay right here for the rest of my life to watch you and make sure you don't throw yourself away again. I do understand what you mean, Alden said, alarmed. I didn't intend to freak you out with the text. There's no reason, no. You don't understand, or you wouldn't be talking about yourself this way. Clearly, I am a bad explainer. Let me try again. Alden, stop wishing you were like Hannah Elber. Please. Alden plucked a coupon for 15% off parasailing out of his hair. He stared across the counter. Bo looked so serious. I don't think I've been wishing that exactly. I never met her, Bo said. But I've heard you talk about her. You admire her so much, and you describe her like she was a holy workaholic combo of hero types 1 and 2. Maybe she was, or maybe that was just how she chose to present herself to you. Either way, damn. Nobody is ever going to hit that mark through any amount of effort. Not even you. You can't make yourself feel warm fuzzies for all mankind. You can't just get stoked about being the person who pulls others out of burning buildings when you were born with the common sense to be afraid of fire. Hey, you could make me feel those things. Alden said. Problem solved. He was trying to take the edge off some of the tension in the room, but Bo just blinked at him. Alden, I wouldn't, he said finally. Even if it was as simple as that and there was no danger involved, I wouldn't. because I don't actually have much respect for that kind of righteousness. I think it's special. I wish there was more of it in the world. But if you ask me to pick which type of person has the most real value, I'm going to pick a third hero type, one who helps after taking his own safety and sanity into consideration. Alden did understand what he was trying to get at, but at the same time, don't you think this hero type 3 might not do the right thing at any given moment because he's a little bit too selfish? Isn't that a problem? Is it okay to walk past one struggling person on your way to save two? Alden frowned. I hate questions like that. Yeah. Everyone does. Moral philosophy problems are nasty little riddles, and they never apply well to the complexities of real life. Hero types 1 and 2 are going to leap headfirst to help whoever happens to be in front of them, and they're going to feel awesome about it. And everyone can applaud them for it. It's a simple, undeniably good answer. That doesn't mean it's the only good answer. You think I should have a different one? Speaking as a scumbag type, I think you need to stop feeling like shit about not naturally being the particular variety of saint you've been looking up to all this time. Most people aren't even hero types at all. They're average types who think there's nothing wrong with stepping over every casualty on the road as long as they didn't directly hurt anyone with their own two hands. You should realize you're already one of the better ones, and make peace with helping others in ways that actually suit your personality. Since you won't listen to my advice and become an elementary school teacher. Alden smiled suddenly. I meant to tell you. You were right about that. I fucking know I was. I thought about it all the time while I was living with Kibby and watching Instructor Gwenlord teach the little kids. Hiding out as an ordeal brute and being a teacher would have made me happy. Bo tossed up his hands. I couldn't figure out how you knew. I didn't even know I liked that kind of thing. How can you not? Never mind. That path is off the table. You can be a teacher here on the island one day if they don't mind the Artonans yanking you out of class every other week. Alden groaned at the reminder. 6 months off sounds like a lot sometimes, and others it sounds like nothing. It's nothing, said Bo severely. You'll blink and be there again. Hopefully scrubbing toilets, now that you mention it. When I thought they wanted me to be an actual garbage man during my first few minutes at Leaf Song, I was pretty cool with it. I hope they do summon me to scrub toilets. It's honest work, and it sounds easy. Please note that in the space of a few sentences we have found 3 jobs that the current you is more passionate about than being a superhero. Alien toilet scrubber, garbage man, school teacher, said Alden. Noted. But assuming I do still want that one day. What's hero type 3 single quote S ideal if he is by his very nature less than an ideal? Bo narrowed his eyes. First of all, what are you hoping it will be? Oh my god, you're a therapist. I will punch you with my superior strength. This is a one-time thing brought on by your terrible treatment of yourself. You owe me all of your Natalie food in exchange for my efforts. Alden went to sit down in a chair beside him. Can't I be so super strong that problems feel smaller, and I never have to get in over my head again? Super strong is why you say you're going to Chillingham North, so I think that's a fair start. You think you'll keep leveling fast? I'm trying not to look at it too hard right now, and you don't want a lot of info. Secrecy is our friend. Learn contract magic. I'm going to. To answer your question, yes. I expect to level quickly. He was relieved he didn't sound as worried about that as he actually was. So hero type 3 gets to be strong and competent, said Bo. And he has a sense of self-preservation, which is not some dirty habit. It's what makes him ponder situations to decide if they're worth his effort and whatever amount of suffering they're going to cause him. He should let himself walk away sometimes. And he should not feel guilty when he does it, because guilt just makes him suck ass at self-analysis. And then he panics trying to fix himself when nothing was ever wrong with him to begin with. I still don't want to be the person who walks away from the whistle. Alden, you didn't walk away from that. Even when you were weaker than you are right now, you took care of it. There's no reason for you to think you wouldn't take care of something equally important in an equally difficult situation again. Alden fiddled with the parasailing coupon. Okay, But if turning your back on some people who need help is an option for you, like, if it's on your personal list of things that you can forgive yourself for, how do you ever make it right in your head? Bo huffed. There are millions of people who need help right now, who we could help if we seriously tried, but you and I are totally ignoring them. Look at us, sitting here with plenty of food in the fridge and more blood than we need pumping through our veins. How are you making that right in your head? Oh, I'm old enough to donate blood now. Your blood's probably radioactive and full of alien germs. Nobody wants it, so maybe that was a bad example. I'm serious, though, Alden said. If you decide to live in shades of moral gray, there's no way to know if you're being pragmatic or just giving yourself a pass to chicken out in any given situation. Bo didn't answer. After he'd been staring off into space for a minute, Alden asked, "Are you getting a call or something?" "No," Bo replied in a distant voice. "Hey, how many lives have you saved in your life?" We don't have to say it was during berry picking. We can pretend it was during some other unrelated event. But how many was it, really? 10, thought Alden. But saving Kibby had been the same as saving himself, so he couldn't count her. 9. Fucker. I was hoping you were going to say 3. Maximum. Fine. Okay. 9. You're one away from double digits. That's cool of you. Where are you going with? I've just thought of a way to help you see yourself better. So that you can make shit right in your head no matter how morally gray the situation is. Bo was grinning now, and he sounded pleased with himself in that particular way. That meant he thought he'd just done something very clever. Alden felt a sense of foreboding. I can't believe it took me this long to come up with it. It should have been out of my mouth the minute you walked into the apartment. Bo, you're acting a little. From now on, whenever you go more than a step or two out of your way to help someone you don't personally know and care for, you have to call me and tell me about it, he announced. What? No, I don't. Alden glared at him. That's patronizing, and dumb as she. Oh, it's not to ask me for permission or anything like that. That would be patronizing. You're totally free to save every person on Anzudora and their pets if you want. You just have to tell me you're doing it. Because from now until the day you really for real die, I'm going to match you. Match me? When I get home, Bo continued, I'm going to save 9 people's lives. And to be fair about it, I'm going to try to do it with an equivalent amount of risk. You said the berry picking wasn't supposed to be incredibly dangerous, but you did know it wasn't safe. So I can't take total softballs. I'll have to find 9 people in situations that will be mildly hazardous for me to resolve. Bo, that's not funny, Alden breathed. You have no idea how good I'm going to be at this. Can you even imagine how much human suffering happens around us on a daily basis? Sometimes, in big crowds, if I lose my shield, I can identify people who are suicidally depressed, or violently angry, or scared of the angry person they're with. I'm embarrassed to tell you that. Because usually I ignore them. See, with my power, there's always a next person in trouble. And a next person. And another. At school once, I felt someone getting the crap beat out of them just outside the building, and in the bathroom across the hall, in the same class period, a person was feeling these spikes of self-hatred and pain that made me think they were hurting themselves. And our teacher was flirting with a girl in a way that was making her incredibly uncomfortable. All of it. All at once. Any time I want. You can't just. How many of them do you think I help? Bo asked. Alden's pulse was racing. He felt the beginnings of panic. The answer is 2. I distracted the teacher by asking for permission to go to the bathroom. I didn't bother with the fight. I could have broken it up easily. But I have to draw the line somewhere. Getting punched in the face is a bizarre risk for me, since I take it like an avowed instead of a normal guy and people might notice. That's the kind of thing I'll do until I get my 9, though. Just a little danger. Probably nothing will go wrong, and I'll be helping people. That's what you thought you were getting yourself into, right? Alden's ears were ringing. Almost like the tinnitus was back. His knuckles were white against the counter. Calm down, Bo said, suddenly eyeing him with alarm. I can't. Try to control your breathing, said Bo. There's that thing you used to do with, I can't, he gasped. Give me a second. Fuck. Don't read me. You asshole. Bo went quiet. This is so humiliating. Actual fucking panic because of a conversation. What the hell, Alden? He wished Bo could leave. He wished he could without having to walk through halls full of people having fun in their Halloween costumes. He clung to the counter, feeling like his chest was going to burst and the room was spinning around him. Bo did go hide out in one of the spare rooms to give him some privacy. 20 minutes later, when he heard Alden running the kitchen sink to get a glass of water, he re-emerged. I'm sorry, he said. Are you all right? Awesome, Alden croaked. I'm way more temperamental than I've been in years. It's so much fun. I wasn't reading you, Bo said. You can tell because I didn't realize I was upsetting you that much until it was too late. I know you weren't. I was a little too thrilled with my idea. Your idea is fucking shit. Oh no, Bo said mildly. My idea is perfection. But I didn't mean to dig in with it quite like that. You're still going to fight gangs as an unregistered superhuman until you save 9 people? Why can't I? Bo asked. His voice was steady. I went a little overboard, and I made it sound like I was going to risk myself to punish you. Which is twisted. I promise it won't be like that. I'll be careful. But I am going to do it. I'll text you before and after. You can watch me through our interfaces if you want. Full disclosure on my life-saving endeavors. Don't think of it as me doing something dangerous to hurt you, spite you, or mock you. It's really not that. Think of it as me helping people with you. Like we're partners in heroics. Long-distance style. Alden stared at him. I don't want you to. Because you value me? Good. You should value yourself at least as much. And I'm always wondering where the line is that will take me from scumbag type to hero type. I know you're all the way on the other side of it. So this is actually the perfect thing for both of us. You're crazy. This is the best I've felt about myself in years, to be honest. I'm completely clear-headed. Be as noble as you choose to be, Alden. Save babies. Save boaters. Save murderers if you want. But every time you stick your own neck out to save a stranger's, pretend I'm there with you. Pretend we're getting into it together and we're facing the exact same amount of struggle and the exact same consequences for failure. I would be too paralyzed to leave the fucking apartment. Why? What do you mean why? Do you think I'm a coward? Bo asked. I'm not trying to paralyze you. I don't want you to wrap yourself up in a blanket and hide from danger. I want to involve myself in this part of your life. All this time, I've thought I wasn't good enough for it, but I think if we do it this way, maybe I am. This is my hero type. I chose it for myself just now. I watch you. I do my best to keep up. Don't hold yourself back only to keep me safe. That's lame. I'm an A rank. I'm smart. I'm actually very competent even if my powers aren't ones I want to use much. So don't worry about challenging me. I expect you to. Just don't throw us away on something you don't really care about. Got it? Alden didn't know what to say. Got it? I get your point at least. My point is that the next time you die it had better be for something the size of the planet. Because otherwise I'm going to resent you a little bit when I try to make us match up. Chapter 90. I don't have to count Lukevulra, right? It was Friday. Alden was packing a suitcase with all the possessions he'd acquired over the past couple of months, while Bo sat on the bed with a notebook, writing down potential good deed schemes for when he got back home. Over the past 48 hours, Alden had gone from panicking about his friend's new hero type, to being absolutely furious about it, to now he felt an inexplicable desire to simultaneously hug and strangle the bastard. Because he was actually serious about them doing this. Bo wasn't usually whimsical, but Alden had still wanted this to be a whim. If anything, though, he was getting more and more into it, in a completely friendship-reshaping way. It was as if he had found the answer to a question Alden had never even suspected he was asking. And now he had been reborn as someone who intended to mimic Alden's moral lead. It was scary. And at least a little messed up. And Alden thought he might be a little messed up, too. Because the new plan was already working on him like a freaking enchantment. When he finally calmed down enough to oblige Bo by considering what he would really do if they were partners in heroics, long-distance style, he no longer felt any uncertainty about the boater. Knowing his friend planned to mimic his efforts gave him so much clarity he almost didn't recognize himself. What did the two of them owe the boater? What should they do to stop Manon? Should they buy spy gear and try to sleuth out her true purposes like the protagonists of a mystery series? The answers were strongly worded emails, nothing, and obviously fucking not. So simple. So clear. His guilt and shame level? Nearly zero. An adult superhero who was an expert on mind control had already been informed. The boater members should be informed, too. It wasn't completely safe to poke the wasp nest in that way, but it was safe enough, he thought. And it was the right thing to do. When he tried to imagine Bo doing more than that, spying, using his powers against Manon, or wading through the swamp of trouble and moral conundrums that would come from publicly decrying one of the most popular rabbit skills, it sounded baffling. This is nuts, he thought as he tucked his growing collection of lavender sackets from the gym into his bag. My decision-making shouldn't be this altered just because I'm considering how doing similar things would affect him. I can't have been holding myself to such a completely different standard than one of the people I care most about. And if I have been, is that damaged? You told Lute he could be your roommate because you felt sorry for him. That could be considered sticking your neck out for a stranger, given who he is. Let that one go. Alden folded a shirt and tucked it in beside the others. It was more about me being mad at myself for letting a liability push me around from the shadows. Okay. I can't figure out a workable equivalent for it anyway. I'll be stopping by Laura's apartment in person, Alden said. Not this weekend but soon. I might try waiting until Manon is off-planet. She posts about getting summoned for jobs on her socials often enough, and the warnings might break through to them better if she is not around. Laura? That's the brute woman who Manon hurt the worst. I decided today in class. She's the only one who gets a personal visit to go with the message. I'm not even going to step inside her place. I will literally just stand in the hall and tell her face to face that I think she needs to take it seriously. The emails would be sent through the system at staggered intervals, with the people who Alden thought were least likely to be willingly in cahoots with Manon receiving theirs first and Pinetta receiving his last. Sweet. An in-person action. Should I back one of mine up with an in-person visit, too? Bo had settled on sending people emails about the criminal or adulterous behavior of their lovers. He had decided, somewhat regretfully, that it would be quicker than trying to track down a small-time cult leader of his very own. Alden still didn't quite understand how they'd ended up here, but here they were. Once again, don't try to make minute details of your schemes match mine, he said firmly. It's too stressful for me to think through. Fair. I'll use my own judgment about whether someone deserves more from me than an email. I'm telling Laura because I'm 100% sure she doesn't know what's going on, and because I think it won't be too dangerous, Alden explained. I'll stay on the phone with some trustworthy local the whole time I'm talking to her. If she doesn't believe me and she won't go get help, that's her problem. I won't do anything else. The boater gets zilch after this. And I'll stay out of F-City as much as I can for the next 6 months. Bo looked up. That's new. What's your thought with that one? Risk mitigation. Manon's power could, conceivably, be used for elaborate and difficult-to-avoid vengeance schemes. I don't think she'd attempt it. But even if she wants to, she and all of her puzzle pieces live here in F. And they actually stopped trying to shake me down for money once when I implied I had friends in Apex. They are cautious about messing around with high ranks. I'll be on campus 95% of the time from now on. I'll be surrounded by actual superheroes. So it's a win for human decency and minimal risk. I like it. Bo hummed to himself. And I'm going to help good people discover that they should choose their romantic partners more wisely. We are making the world a much better place here. It's like he's turned himself into a mirror for me. And whatever I do, I won't be able to look away from the reflection. Alden thought about that while he collected his shoes from his closet. Turning around with 4 pairs of them in his arms, he said, "Listen. If we are really going to try this, and you want me to take it just as seriously as you are, it has to go both ways." Bo was drawing little broken hearts by the name of one of their 8th grade teachers, who was no doubt a future divorcee. "What? If I have to tell you when and how I'm sticking my neck out for strangers, then you have to do the same thing." Bo blinked at him. Have you met me? I don't think you're going to be getting many surprises along those lines. Something else then. I want to copy you somehow, too. Bo pushed up his glasses. Sorry. This is already an attempt to correct my general scumbaggery. I don't think I have any other bad habits you can fix by copying me. You're not a scumbag just because you don't help every troubled person you can sense with your powers. Alden didn't say it, because he knew exactly the look Bo would give him if he did. Everyone's got something, he said instead. You're mirroring me. Let me mirror you. Like I said, be my guest. But I don't know how you think it's going to work. Alden dropped the shoes onto the bed. It was true. It seemed like almost everything he could think of that worried or bothered him about Bo was a problem Bo was already aware of and planning to deal with: repairing his friendship with Jeremy, dropping out of school, getting Alden to learn contract tattoos so he could get his guilty secret and tell off his chest. The empathy thing was more complicated. Over the past few days Alden had been trying to detect when Bo was bothered by it, but after that first meeting, he seemed to always be shielding or keeping such a tight grip on himself that Alden couldn't tell when he wasn't. He's really good at hiding things from me. And I can't hide things from him if he doesn't want me to. That's not fair. Oh, that might be. Alden pondered it for a while. This thing you want to do might be okay for me, he admitted. And it seems to be making you happy for now. I'm delighted. My genius has outdone itself. Bo was scribbling on his notebook again. The whole dynamic relies on me being very honest with you. If I read about you taking a bullet for someone in the news before you tell me about it yourself, I'm going to assume you've done it 100 times in secret. Don't bother to assume. I'll commit to telling you the truth. And also. He hesitated for just a second. Also, from now on, you can read my emotions. Whenever you need to. Or even if you just really want to. I would appreciate it if you tell me about it when you do it, but you don't even have to do that much. Bo's pen stopped scribbling against the paper. No. Blanket permission for something like that is way too much for any friendship. Is it? Alden was wearing his orient around his neck this afternoon, and he ran his fingers along it while he thought through how to say it. If you seriously tell me it's the wrong thing, I'll believe you, and I'll retract the offer. But I've been chewing on it ever since I found out, and if I was an empath, I don't think I'd be able to stop myself from doing the reader part of it 100% of the time. The skill you have that pushes people, I think I could resist that one. But the reading? I haven't read you at all this week except for the times you already know about. Bo set aside his notebook. I swear. I'm not accusing you of anything. See, this is why I think it's best if I do give you blanket permission. If I had that power, and I was afraid you were hurt or scared or lying to me about something important, I hope I'd respect your privacy. But realistically, I would slip up. Probably a lot. It's way too easy, isn't it? To do it and to justify it. Sometimes, I bet I'd just be too curious about someone to stop myself. Bo's expression was tight. Right, said Alden. So if we both agree that you shouldn't read me, it's not going to work. We can pretend you're perfect. But I'm always going to know that you must screw up sometimes, and I'm going to resent the boundary violation a little even if I try not to. And you're going to feel like a piece of shit for betraying my trust every time you do it, and that's just going to make you all withdrawn and down on yourself. It'll eventually ruin our friendship. Bo's grip tightened on the blanket beneath him. I won't let it. Okay, Alden thought. So this is an actual problem. I was right. Let's just take all the work out of it. For both of us. Bo, you can emotion check me whatever amount is right for you. Unless I've specifically asked you not to for some reason. And I will be alright with that. It would be easier in the long run. Mortifying at times, but knowing he'd agreed to overshare wouldn't be nearly as bad as feeling like his friend was taking something he hadn't offered. Alden, you won't be alright with that, Bo said harshly. How could you be? You're worried about how unfair it will feel knowing I occasionally slip up. How are you going to feel walking around just assuming you have no emotional privacy from me? I was getting to that part. Why don't you try to make it fair? What's that mean? You can make it fair to me, Alden repeated. It was nice to be the calm one for a change. He'd been such a dramatic wreck this week, and he finally felt like he was starting to get a handle on himself again. You want to match me in other ways. So match me in this one, too. You're the only one who will know for sure what the right amount of give and take is anyway. Balance us out so that it's not just one-way openness on my part. Don't worry about the times when it's a true accident, or when we agree to hang out even though your barrier is exhausted. Just make it so that the reads you do on purpose are fair. All the color left Bo's cheeks. You want me to share my emotions in exchange? Alden stared at him. Not magically or anything. I know you said you don't want to use skill too. You can just tell me things about yourself I would know if I were an empath, too. Why does he look so freaked out? Is he misunderstanding something? For example, when you inevitably read me at the wrong moment one day and finally realize I am a little too into ultra plush socks now. Tell me your own version of that. Or we could agree that I get to ask you how you're feeling when I want to sometimes, and you have to answer honestly. Easy. Just enough to balance out the on-purpose reads, Bo said faintly. Easy. If you want to cheat, it's not like I'll really know. But it would make you a huge dick. Bo swallowed. What if me balancing it out in that way just makes your life even harder? How would that be fair to you? You mean because I'll be worried about your mental health or have to deal with knowing that you hate my guts every 6th Wednesday? Alden asked. Don't you have to deal with that kind of thing, too? I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not a paragon of stability right now. I have nightmares about literal demons. And worse. To me, fair doesn't mean you pay me back for reading me with nice, happy things that will make me feel good. It means we deal with each other more equally. Good and bad. If it's mostly bad, then. Like you said when you decided on this new plot of yours, do you think I'm a coward? I'll be fine. I don't think I will be. You'll get used to it. Alden headed back to his closet. I'm already getting used to the idea that you're my own personal copycat hero. It's almost flattering if I look at it sideways. 10 minutes later, he was through packing. Bo was gazing down at his notebook with a blank expression on his face. Alden wondered if a request for empathic equality had broken him. At least he's taking it really seriously, I guess. He targeted Bo and poked him in the knee. Let me show off. Tell me to pick up my suitcase. Bo looked over at the absolutely massive blue suitcase Alden had ordered from Dragon Rabbit this morning. He shook his head. Everyone who sees you carrying that is going to think you're a brute. I know. Alden said. I'm so excited. Your new skill discovery is decent. Give me my command. Alden, Bo said seriously, take the luggage. Alden focused. Just the suitcase. Nothing else. He'd been practicing. When he tried to do just the suitcase handle, it wouldn't work. Yet. But that was only a mind game. He'd get it before long. Preserving the suitcase without the contents, though, had already become relatively easy. He lifted it, and he immediately felt the skill activate. The suitcase was preserved. The clothes, shoes, cat toys, and accumulated junk inside were not. He could feel the weight of them against his authority while he picked the bag up with 2 fingers and beamed at Bo. I just know you're going to carry that with you everywhere with that smug look on your face. Even though it's got wheels. Wheels are for the weak. Alden swung the suitcase around, almost clipping the bedside table. I could smash this over somebody's head. One-handed. I just dropped the preservation at the last second so that my magic isn't holding the weight anymore, and wham. So easy. Very heroic. I know you're jealous. I don't have to read your emotions to figure that one out. I'm not jealous at all right now, said Bo. I'm relieved. Alden looked over in surprise. Relieved? You're the kind of person who gets into a lot of trouble. You've joined a school that trains you for combat. When I see you swinging around 70 pounds of luggage like it weighs 2, I feel relieved. Ah, said Alden. Emotional transparency. You're doing it with me. Thank you. Bo smiled faintly. Oh, that wasn't much. I'll balance us out. Just give me time to think of how to make it fair. Maybe I'll have something figured out when you get back from the party with all your new classmates. Alden set the suitcase down. New? He moaned. I don't want to go. Let me beat you at pinball again. You have to go. You already told the dude who's throwing it that you would. I'm going to stay here. I've decided. Line of asterisks. Bo almost had to shove him out the door to make him attend Constantine's party. I'm going to see those strangers all the time for the next who knows how many years. He protested from out in the hall, using the text font they had agreed was the angry one. You have to go home tomorrow morning. That's my point. Don't snub the popular guy who's the brother of your new roommate and be the only one in your acceptance group who doesn't hang out with everyone else on top of being the B-rank rabbit. Wizard rabbit. Pull yourself out of a hat if you want, but you still have to go. I curse you for making me the one who's insisting on socialization. It's wrong. You're the empath. You're supposed to love people. What kind of a cartoon-colored idea is that? People are needy, selfish, insecure, filthy-minded little feelers. Go party with them. Alden sighed. Fine. I'll drink a mocktail for you. He started down the hall. The leftover Halloween decorations were still littering most of the doors. For some reason, the air smelled like sparklers. Hey, do Anisidran teens pretend to get drunk on their mocktails? Bo asked. Probably. That's probably exactly what you're signing me up for. The mental texting had gone from being pretty easy to being completely natural over the past few days. Alden was starting to feel like he had telepathy. He kept an eye out for Maricel as he headed through the building, hoping to spot her. He'd seen her a couple of times on campus, usually with Tieter Vandy. The Darkmeister and the Sky Shaper were going to be her roommates, and she seemed to get along with both of them despite their 3 very different personalities. That's going to be a lot of S-ranks in one room. When he didn't catch her in the lobby, he headed out on his own. He stopped at a fancy corner grocery not too far from intake. What are good mocktail ingredients? He asked as he wandered down the aisles, staring at jars of olives and candied fruit. How should I know? Do you think I've ever had a mocktail in my life? I'm supposed to bring something. I like pineapples. How many pineapples would I have to bring for a party, though? I dare you to use your new trick to carry 40 pineapples. I'd try it, but I'm sure it would make everyone hate me on the train. He ended up buying a bunch of differently flavored sodas. The store had a self-checkout. Alden took the Nasikert Bo had entrusted him with a few minutes ago from his pocket, pulled the enchantment off the metal disc with a finger, and used the card to cover what he was doing while he held just the enchantment itself toward the card scanner. He dropped the preservation. The screen showed that he'd paid for the drinks, and the enchantment, separated from its home, burned out for the last time. Not the most practical thing he'd ever done, but it was interesting to know that he could finger pay for things with that type of enchantment at least once. He figured the info might apply more broadly to other kinds of enchantments and magical scanners. And he'd get another card when he took Victor and Bo to the teleportation complex tomorrow. You're still my target, he texted. Tell me to pick up the bag full of drinks right in front of me. We've tried it 20 different times. It won't work from this far away. It feels like it should, though. If you can do it by text from a couple of floors away, why not a couple of blocks? pick up the bag full of drinks in front of you?" Bo said. Alden did. The skill didn't activate. He prodded around at the bearer of all burdens. "What gives? What's the difference in me being this far away when the entrustment is given? Why are you being picky?" Alden. He looked up to see Maricel just entering the shop. After having her ponytail chopped off for the sake of the combat assessment, she had gotten her hair repaired into a pixie cut. It looked nice enough to Alden's untrained eye, but he couldn't tell if she loved it or hated it. It was usually on full display at school, but whenever he spotted her in the dorms, she had her hoodie pulled up to cover it. "Hey, Maricel. I was looking for you just a minute ago. Are you buying ingredients, too?" She nodded and headed toward one of the freezers in the back. "This place has calamansi juice." After she paid for her juice, they headed for the nearest station and traveled toward Khan's home on the northwestern edge of F-City. "I expected to see you around more," Maricel said half an hour later as they followed the directions on their interfaces toward a place called Nilama Marina. "Are you hanging out with your new roommates a lot?" Alden hadn't even seen Lexi or Hoyu this week. "I have a class with one of them. Sorry for being a recluse. I've just been enjoying the last few days of peace and quiet in intake. And by peace and quiet I mean shocking revelations and negotiations with my friend the criminal." "That's probably a good idea." She looked curiously at a man in a turban who was casting a spell over the keyboard of a street piano. "Maybe I should have taken it easier, too, but I wanted everything to be better with my new roommates than with my old ones. By the way, I think you should expect people to ask you some questions tonight." Alden frowned. "Why?" "Because Vandy and Tyed asked me questions about you. And neither one of them ever gossips about anyone else." Right. I appreciate the warning." "I hate you," he texted Bo. "What did I do?" "They don't say anything bad about you. They just seemed very curious," Maricel added. "They don't want to date you, though?" I asked. "So that's not why they're interested." "You asked them if they wanted to date me?" Alden gaped down at her. "Why would they want to date me? We don't even know each other." She smiled at him. "I asked in a teasing way when they wouldn't shut up about you. It wasn't strange. I was checking for you." He felt alarmed. "But I guess she's helping." "Thank you," he said uncertainly. "Do they want to know about me because of my rank or my class, or it's all the other things? I think word is spreading around. I haven't talked about you. Aunt probably wouldn't share rumors with just anyone, but I think she does tell her sisters and brother everything. She seems really close to them." They turned onto a narrower street where attempts had been made to transform identical, shoebox-shaped buildings into something more cheerful with pastel paint colors and lines of tall palm trees that must have been regularly maintained by someone's magic given how inappropriate the climate here was for them. "It's fine," Alden said as they passed a tattoo parlor where a girl around their own age was hanging a string of marigolds over the door. "Anyone from intake could be talking about me. Or the faculty could have said something where people could overhear. And I wouldn't be surprised if Max was running background checks on us all." "Why would you think that, Alden?" a male voice asked. Alden whirled, his bag of drinks swinging wildly. Maricel shrieked. She dropped her own bag of juice onto the pavement, her hand flew out, and a ball of dirt shot from one of her pockets toward the tall boy who had just spoken. He was standing so close behind them that he had to have been deliberately masking his footsteps for them not to have noticed his presence. He threw an arm up in front of him at the last second, and Maricel's dirt ball smashed into him. Hard. Max's fist flew back into his own nose. He slapped his other hand to his face and swore in a muffled voice. It was all over in a couple of seconds, and the three of them stood there staring at each other in horror. "I'm so sorry." Greater than Maricel shouted, her eyes huge. "You scared me, and I, greater than, it's fine. I'm fine." Max pulled his hand away, and a little blood dribbled down his face. Maricel yelped and started patting her hoodie pockets like she was searching for a tissue. But instead she just pulled out another handful of dirt and looked at it with a blank expression. "Max." "Hi there." "You're bleeding," Alden said finally. Max's lips compressed. I noticed. I'm sorry, I was talking about you behind your back. Saying that you were background checking all of us was not meant as an insult. I was just noting that you are a thorough person. In a positive way. He hoped that sounded convincing. Sure. Max's voice was flat. Alden narrowed his eyes. You were literally sneaking up on us and eavesdropping just now. I thought it would be funny. And now my nose is broken. Is it really? Maricel gasped. I'm so. Max waved at her with his not bloody hand and felt at the bridge of his nose. I'm kidding. It doesn't feel broken. I just wasn't expecting your reaction to be an attack. With your powers. I thought you'd yell and then laugh like a normal person. He arched an eyebrow at her. I will not surprise you in the future. Alden noted that he wasn't excluded from that. Really though. Max pressed a knuckle to his bloody nostril as he tipped his chin to look down at Maricel. You do understand you can't do things like this? Not here. I know you're probably not used to Zedora, but you're an S and this isn't Apex. We're a few hundred meters from one of the family zones. If we were standing over there, he pointed in the direction they were headed. Instead of here, you'd be caught on a dozen cameras, and whoever's on call for this area would land on you like the wrath of God. I don't think they're going to arrest you for a first offense with a little dirt baseball. But they will definitely fine you, ban you from safe zones for a while, and put your name on a list that shows up in all the local news. Maricel's eyes were still fixed on him. Her expression had frozen on her face. Alden looked back toward the family zone. There was an advisement on his interface that they were approaching one, a tiny glowing house symbol in the section he'd assigned for local pop-up warnings. But it was so easy to get used to those things and ignore them. Especially since there wasn't much risk of him using his own skill offensively as a knee-jerk reaction. He could free his Ori out and hit something with his square punch spell, but he wasn't worried that he was going to do it accidentally. That's a good thing. I'd hate to be afraid of my own magic. I'm not trying to scare you, Max was saying. I'm just pointing out that you have to get used to extremes in this place. About like playing with our powers, and this is home, so we let ourselves be really irresponsible with them in some settings. And then in others, like when you're out in public in the family neighborhoods, it's the opposite. You have to have a don't zap it mode. That tattoo parlor probably has something that will help with your nose. And there's a clothes shop a couple of blocks back according to the area map, Alden said. Do you want me to run in and get you a new shirt? He didn't know what else to do to make the situation less uncomfortable. Max glanced at the pale green button-down he was wearing. Wonderful. Blood and dirt. It'll only take me a minute, said Alden. I'll pay. Maricel said immediately. No. Let's just walk quickly. If we get to Khan's place in time he can fix this, Max said, setting off with long strides. And he seems like a person who likes to show off his talent. I would, too, if I had that one. One of the most useful powers I've ever heard of. Alden walked beside him, and Maricel hurried to catch up. I heard some people saying at their meet and greet that they were worried he wouldn't get into the program because of it, Max said. Idiots. He was actually a little worried about it himself. Alden thought conversation was a good plan. It made it feel less like they were a trio made up of an eavesdropper, a gossiper, and an attacker who had all just run afoul of each other on the sidewalk. Max rolled his eyes. I'm afraid sometimes that wanting to become a professional superhero might be something you're not supposed to do if you have even the tiniest speck of common sense. Constantine Roberts is the most employable member of our entire admissions group. He's probably going to be one of the most employable people in all of Chilena North. He would have had to bite an instructor for them not to take him. He threw both hands out in front of him and made a series of gestures. A pair of matching copper-colored bracelets peeked out from beneath his sleeves. Alden thought they looked more like equipment of some kind than jewelry. Speed increase in around 5 steps. It feels like a moving walkway. Don't stop or fall down, said Max. Without pausing for a breath, he continued, even if we ignore the investigative potential of Khan's object reading and just focus on the spell impression. Does nobody else realize how much damage I've do to everything around us when we fight each other? In some places and situations, it's fine. Because it's what people really want, superhuman battle theater they can feel good about watching. But that's if you're fighting in a scrapyard or an empty park. When you start devastating property the fine citizens of Earth actually care about, you subject yourself and whoever's paying you to a lot more negative judgment. Alden was trying to keep track of Max's speech, but he was a little distracted by his anticipation of the upcoming magical effect. Suddenly, his foot hit a spot in the sidewalk that felt less solid than concrete. His stride took him 3 paces farther forward than it should have. Looking down made him feel dizzy, so he jerked his eyes up. Behind him, Maricel made a startled noise. Max was casting again. If Khan gets a spell that lets him repair larger objects, or if he can significantly extend his time window, he'll be able to clean up after other heroes. And both of those things seem possible based on how Adjuster usually works. He's an S, so even if he gets no offensive spells he should be able to take care of himself on the edges of a fight. Ideally, everyone will get to see someone wrecking ball through a town, and then they'll get to watch it magically put itself back together again. Nobody will be inconvenienced, and insurance companies will send Khan so many gift baskets he's going to have to shovel his way through them every morning to greet his fans. Which he'll have legions of even if he isn't a combat specialist. Because in addition to having been systemically blessed, he's going to be a natural on camera. 3 or 4 steps until the speed zone ends. Then 8 until the next one. I don't think battle theater is what most people want from their superheroes, Alden protested. Neither Max nor Maricel responded. As they stepped out of the second speed zone, Max finally looked over at him. I understand why you might feel that way. I think it depends on whether or not they're actually scared of criminals with superhuman abilities. And how they regard Avowed in general. But for a large percentage of people, a superhero is just a pretty, likable character who uses fun magic powers to beat up a nasty, unlikable character. It's no more serious to them than that. What do you even want to be in this program for then? Max didn't answer until they'd reached the end of the palm tree-lined street. They headed toward a seaside apartment tower with a giant lettered sign, currently unlit, at the top, and he shoved his way through the revolving door. Just because most people think like that doesn't mean I do, he said, glancing around the red-tiled lobby then beelining for the elevator bank. As the car played a theremin-heavy soundtrack and zipped up to the 7th floor, he added, also, Maricel's right. About what? Maricel asked. People have gotten curious about you, Alden. I'm surprised you haven't noticed if you've been in class this week. It's been a busy week. And I don't have academic classes with anyone from our group except for big lectures. Not a lot of opportunity for chatting. Intro to Other Worlds and Preparatory Sciences were the only classes where he ever spoke to anyone, and then it was only Maricel and Finley, who were both nice enough not to pry at sensitive subjects. We'll all be seeing a lot more of each other starting Monday. Gym class. Should be delightful. What exactly is the gossip about me? Alden didn't want to ask Max, but he did want to know. And he felt sure that Max would know. The Adjuster smiled as the gold metal doors of the elevator opened. Only the things anyone on Earth would find if they did a background check. And by that, I mean typing your name into a computer. Wonderful. You're a bad friend, he texted Bo. You sent me out to deal with these people all by myself. You live with those people now. That's a mistake. I admit it. I've made a big mistake. Teach me how to enter cat space. No. Line of asterisks. Alden had been to my parents' aren't home style high school party before. Once. He had drifted miserably through someone else's house, wondering if he'd entered an alternate reality where all of the people he saw at school behaving normally every day had committed themselves to pretending they were movie teen stereotypes. He was expecting the same thing from this one, with a possible side order of nosy questions based on Max and Maricel's warnings. So he braced as the door to the apartment opened, and he promised himself he only had to stay for a single hour. Hey! You guys are early, too. Khan said exuberantly. That's great. He was wearing his Chilena North uniform and a bright yellow paper cone hat of the type that usually only made an appearance at birthdays. He stood aside and gestured them into a spacious apartment. Around 20 people, many of whom Alden recognized from the admissions meet and greet, were sprawled on furniture, sleeping bags, and pillows arranged in front of a projection screen that was showing the end of a Chinese martial arts film. "This looks different than I was expecting." In a positive way. "Everybody, we have Alden, Max, and Maricel," he shouted. "The Globies are showing up." A boy wearing what appeared to be the uniform for one of the local middle schools cried. His shirt was covered in signatures. Like a yearbook page maybe. Alden guessed. That would make sense. For the locals who hadn't opted to go ahead and start classes at CNH this week, today would have been their last day at their old schools. "My mother's an Isidorian," Max said. "Oh, boring." A few other people waved and shouted hi. "You're a little bloody." Con stared at Max. "What happened?" "I fell on my face in some dirt. It was around 4 minutes ago." "Can you fix my—" "Yeah. Sure. I'm the king of stain removal. 4 minutes is nearly my limit, though, so let's heal your shirt right away. Maricel, Alden, you two can go in the kitchen and set your stuff down. Make yourself a drink. There's a bunch of baklava. More snacks are being delivered. Grab a hat." He took Max by the elbow and steered him down a hall. The kitchen was full of a large and very random assortment of drink supplies. Astrid, the spiky-haired morph brute Con and Alden had rescued during the Heroes vs. Villains game, and a short girl with cornrows were giggling and throwing some of everything into a blender together. "What did you bring?" Greater than the shorter girl asked, pouring almond extract into the pitcher and looking at their shopping bags eagerly. "Oh my God," said Astrid, pointing at Alden. "America. Have you ever seen a moose?" Her tongue wasn't obviously pierced anymore, but her eyebrow was. "Is moving her piercing around shape-shifting practice?" He set his sodas down on a mint green counter and tried to figure out why he was being asked about moose. "Not in a zoo or something," Astrid clarified, throwing a handful of cocktail onions in the general direction of the blender. "A real moose. In the wilderness." "I have not," Alden said slowly. "Damn it. Why?" "All of us taking normie studies," the other girl cleared her throat. "Fine. None about experiences and cultures. We're doing homework bingo, and for one of the squares, I need to interview someone about fearful things they've encountered in nature. And I saw this program about moose attacks once, and I really want to interview someone who's seen a moose." "I'm Rebecca," the other girl said. She made a flicking gesture beside her ear, and a name tag appeared. She was an A-rank brute. Instead of calling herself by one of the subclass names Alden was familiar with, she listed Jumper as her specialty. He didn't know what that meant in terms of her real powers. "I'm in the same class." "Have you ever been in a forest fire?" Alden and Maricel both shook their heads. "Forget bingo then," Astrid cried. "Bring an offering for the blender." Rebecca was throwing a spoonful of espresso powder on top of the onions. "You're not going to drink that, are you?" Maricel's face twisted as she studied the blender's contents. "Everyone will. It's for a game later. It will bind us to each other forever. Until we die of food poisoning," Rebecca said. "It was my idea," said Astrid. "Or maybe Maddie's. I'm not sure. We got a little stupid on the way over from school earlier and the blender of binding was born. When a couple dozen more people show up with their offerings, this may have enough ingredients to qualify as a real wizard potion." "Is our whole admissions group coming?" Alden asked. "Con invited everyone. Plus around 40 others." She shrugged. "Realistically, almost none of the people who failed to get in will come. It's too soon, you know? Need time to lick their wounds." "It's a good thing, too," said Con, breezing into the kitchen with a cleaner-looking Max behind him. Con's new roommate, Mehdi, was sipping something that looked like coffee out of a martini glass and bringing up the rear. 80 people would definitely break building rules. Our neighbors are cool, but not that cool. I booked the roof just in case, but the weather's going to be miserable tonight. Have you seen the swells out there? He nodded toward one of the large oval windows that looked out over the marina and the ocean beyond. The sinking sun was only occasionally visible through cracks in the clouds, and the water looked almost storm-tossed. Your brother's going to drown. Mehdi was speaking to Con but examining Max. Then he turned dark eyes on Alden, scanning him from head to toe. Is he judging my outfit or something? If he was, Alden was sure his jeans and sweater combo was found lacking. Con's new roommate was wearing a knee-length black coat with a stylized lion's head painted on the back in bronze. I know, Con was saying. He's crazy. Did he go swimming? Max was fixing himself some complicated drink that involved a lighter and an orange peel. I know people do, but, no, the water temperature is about 6 degrees today, isn't it? And he's not quite that crazy. He's just out in his boat with Hoyu. He's got a boat? Alden asked. A little one. Our parents got it for him for his birthday. Shit 16 present, Mehdi said, raising his glass. The other Anisidrans all nodded. Maricel looked around at them all. A boat sounds like an expensive gift to me, though. Con turned to her, blinking. It was. I guess this is completely an island thing. I hadn't thought of that. But when you start to age out of the usual selection window for the rank everyone thought you were going to have, sometimes your family suddenly gets too generous with the gift giving. It's usually a shit 17, Mehdi added. But when your younger brother gets selected there's an S before you get selected at all. Con threw his head back and groaned. I didn't even tell them for a whole week. I knew he was going to be so upset. And that he might kill me. I was hoping the system would take pity on us both. Woo-oh. You were stronger than me, said Astrid. I woke half the neighborhood up at the crack of dawn when I got my AI woke up my dog to tell her. Con smiled at Maricel. Anyway, Lexi was really hoping for our S. We've both known we wanted to go the hero school route for years. And you have to have the rank for that. Unless you're Alden and Max here. Max was throwing a sugar cube into his glass. Alden had just opened a lemon soda. We weren't panicking for him yet, but we were definitely starting to have more awkward dinner conversations where Mom and Dad were conspicuously saying positive things about the lifestyles of Des and Fs. Gotta lower those expectations all the way down once you start lowering them. Mehdi pointed at the floor. My aunt and uncle did it wrong with one of my cousins. They went level by level, prolonging the torture every few months. He affixed as an F outlier at almost 19. And he was completely depressed and done with our whole family by then. Con winced. Yeah. I finally had to come out about it. You can't just wait when it says it's so hard to trade, and I really wanted a adjuster. Because we're the best. Hey, said half the people in the room. I speak only the truth, he said. Anyway, Maricel, when I told my family, it was about 10 weeks after Lexi's 16th birthday. And suddenly, in addition to shelling out a ton of money to help me top off the trade for the class, they found enough for a boat. I don't think he even wanted a boat at the time, but he uses it a lot. So your brother got a boat and a high rank in the end, said Astrid. She saluted the ocean with a half-peeled banana. Now that's the way to do it. He felt bad about it when he got selected a couple of months after me. They'd just finished paying for my trade, and his boat, and then they had to help him get Meister, too. He offered to sell the boat, but they didn't want to admit it was a we had given up on you present, so they wouldn't let him. The fact that they had this Artona 2 tour lined up was a huge relief. Trades were so rough this year, said Rebecca, her lips turning down. I wanted a ranged weapon Meister, but I couldn't trade into it, and my parents couldn't afford to offer enough money on top. You're going to kill it as a brute, though, said Astrid. We're awesome, too. Yeah, according to the surveys brute actually has a higher satisfaction rate than Meister or adjuster. So, in the long run, you guys will probably be better off than any of us, said Con. Except maybe Alden. Alden had been standing off to the side with his soda, wondering just how much Anisidran parents had to save up to arrange to make their children's dream classes a reality. Why me? Rabbit's right below healer for class satisfaction, Con informed him. I know that's probably a self-selection result considering how hard it is to nab a rare, but it's still interesting to note. You are, mostly, a happy class. I can believe that. Rabbit intake is fun from what I've seen. Compared to the other groups. Mehdi had set down his martini and was making micro-adjustments to his hair using his reflection on the fridge handle. I know in my heart that you intakers are partying every day. 3 full months of no school. All that nice stuff. I tried to sneak in with friends a couple of times last year, but they have guard ninjas to keep us out. They are just security people in dark clothes, man, said Khan. Ninja-like security people. They don't want us bothering the new citizens, said Rebecca. They don't want us to enjoy our youth, said Mehdi. All those globies with new powers, nothing but free time, and no parents nagging them like they're still children. Some of them come out of that place pregnant. It's obviously a foo. Astrid threw a bottle of black currant syrup at his back, and he spun and snatched it out of the air. It shattered with an explosive tinkle. Maricel shouted. Alden covered his face half a second too late. Fortunately, he just got splattered instead of cut. Fuck, you too. Come on, said Con, leaping back from the spreading puddle. Fucking glass? Oops. Astrid's eyebrow ring fell off her face and hit the floor. She really must have been maintaining the piercing to practice her morphing. That was my bad. I knew he could catch it, but I threw it harder than I meant to. It might have been my fault, too, said Mehdi, shaking syrup from his fingers. I haven't got grip strength down when I'm surprised. I've been breaking things at home a lot. My hand's not cut, though. So we didn't overdo it too much. People were running into the kitchen to see what the noise was. All right. The Meister who'd shot Alden with a lot of arrows during their duel last weekend shouted. Party's really starting up now. He fist-bumped the boy in the autographed shirt. Max stood there, absolutely dripping with dark purple liquid. The expression on his face was louder than any sigh could have been. Tobe continued, thanks for listening.